Nisrine Sarkis is a graphic designer with 15 years of experience in branding and typography. She's an instructor at LAU. She's a letterer and type design enthusiast with a strong passion for Arabic script. So please help me welcome Nisrine Sarkis. The stage is yours.
So, thank you. Hi, everyone. I would like to first thank Hara and Khajak for the invitation. I'm very honored to be here. As mentioned in the intro, I'm Nisrine Sarkis. I'm a graphic designer, basically focused on branding. So I have 15 years in experience working on branding. But my story with Arabic typography is very similar to the history of Arabic typography in that it was a very bumpy journey where I didn't have any education, any formal education. My university didn't have Arabic in its curriculum. Early agency work where there was some Arabic involved, I actually looked at Latin references to work with my Arabic. I had no idea what I was doing. But I had always this curiosity of wanting to work with Arabic and wanting to discover how Arabic actually works. And I did that by night. So I was like a designer by day and a letterer by night. And that was my way of trying to intuitively and explore the world of Arabic letters. And what I would like to talk about today is the many challenges that I face as a designer working in the commercial world with Arabic typography, as I'm sure many designers and students will face when they start working. And so these challenges are basically between three main actors: the designer, the client, and the script. So there's always going to be battles either between the designer and the client and the script, etc. And I'm going to show you some process behind the work that I've done where I've went through these challenges. The first being a lack of a big library of Arabic typefaces. So this is obvious, like needless to say. But a lot of good Arabic typefaces have been coming out lately, but also most of them are text typefaces, not a lot of display typefaces out there. So when you're working with branding and you want to give a voice to a brand that is very unique, there's not much to start with. And this is where the lettering skills that I have been building throughout came through. So I want to show you some of the logo types I've worked on, and this is for a black metal band. Now, I know that this is a bit extreme because even in Latin, you will not find very much, a lot of Arabic, a lot of black metal typefaces, but at least you have some lettering logo types that you can look at, whereas in Arabic, you don't have that. And I was very intrigued, and the members of the band did not want something so complex. They wanted something simplified, but that did give that dark feeling. And so I went into old manuscripts, and I found that a lot of these manuscripts were about the occult. So I tried to take in that aesthetic. I also looked at a lot of Kufi, and that was the first time that I looked at Kufi in a different way, because it really was very black metal with those very triangular, thorny endings. And I felt like I did not have to do anything. I just had to work with the Kufi. And so I suggested these three logo types to the band, and while trying to also incorporate a circular form that works with the idea of arid. Like the second one, the dot of the dot feels like the weight of the earth over the letters. And the last one is the one that the band members finally chose. A different, less unique, let's say, example of lettering work for a logo type is for this Lebanese restaurant called Warid. And it's really important for you designers who like branding to really get into lettering skills and a little bit of type design skills, because this is where all of the work on personality and trying to differentiate brands comes in. And here the inspiration was more from old Beirut signs in the souks and the floral patterns you find in your kitchen's grandmother, in your grandmother's kitchen. I'm not nervous, no. So, and it was also weird working with three isolated letters in Arabic that had the very different proportions. And I worked on these different adaptations, and the last one was the one that the client chose. This is also another exercise that was interesting because the client didn't really know what they wanted. So they shared with me this first image of these young people, and they told me, this is us, and this is who will wear our jewelry, and this is what we want to be. And so I started with the first two logos, doing something that is bold, trendy, edgy, inspired by the geometric forms of crystals, some stencil adaptations just to give it a bit more edge, but they were all rejected. So I thought maybe the client actually wants something classic, but they just don't know it. Yeah, and so I did something more inspired by the interior architecture of the place, where they had these elongated columns where they showcase the jewelry. So I went for letters that are very elongated, or that give this elongated feel. And the last one is the one they chose. So these skills also come in not only in logo types, but sometimes also in campaign slogans. And this is a campaign called Anna 2030 that I worked with Wonder 8, that I worked on with Wonder 8. And Anna 2030 is an initiative by the private sector in KSA as a support to the Vision 2030 of the country. And so I suggested, why don't we design different Annas to personify the different occupations, hobbies, and ages of the Saudi people as they give that statement of Anna 2030. Sorry, I need to drink some water. The next challenge is the perception of modernity in Arabic typography is very influenced by the Latin-informed period it went through. So a lot of clients will still insist on having a logo type that is much more Latin-influenced, let's say, in its forms and in its shapes than Arabic. And this is one of these clients. This is a big real estate company in KSA called Daru Amar. This is their initial logo, which is based on Diwani, as you can see here. So it's a very traditional logo. It's a bad Diwani, but it's still. And their sub-brand was Villa Al Saraya, and you can clearly see the attempt to be more Latinized, to be more modern. And when we first started on rebranding the main brand, we went into a very extreme, different approach where we just changed everything, worked with the geometric forms based on Kufi, inspired by the idea of houses, of neighborhoods, architecture. But then we found that the client is still very attached to their original logo. So we went back to the square and tried to work within the square on different, again, explorations of scripts. We worked on something from Kufi, from Nasikh, and then a direct uplift of their Diwani logo, just trying to give this Diwani a bolder and more modern feel. Still, the client was super attached to their initial logo. So we had to just uplift what they had, making slight tweaks here and there, just to make it like good enough. And when we worked on their sub-brands, so now we know like what the client is expecting and what their taste is. And so in our propositions, we had solutions that were more to the modern side, but also solutions that combined some fluid script with some geometric script as a wink to their Diwani logo. And again, so this is actually super frustrating, but this is what they went for. You can see that there's a forced X height there. There's super geometric proportions, vertical stress, but this to them is modern. Then you had to do another sub-brand, which is a higher-end real estate project they had called Tal Al-Hayat. And again, we went into doing something fluid as a wink to their Diwani logo, and also something more geometric and modern. And these are the two the two logo types, if you want, that the client chose between. One is a direct adaptation of Saraya homes, and the other one is just a bolder, let's say, version of the same. And the bolder one is the one that was final. This is when a client gets to be king. So, the third challenge is translating visual concepts from Latin to Arabic or vice versa. And this is a project for the first Diraya Biennale, which was titled Feeling the Stones. And they had initially hired a Dutch-American designer, Emil Molen. He was working on the identity. He presented several explorations, and this was the one that was approved. So Feeling the Stones is inspired by this quote from China in the 80s that says, "Crossing the river while feeling the stones," which encapsulates how improvisational progress is made step by step. And so Emil's solution was just shifting the letters under the baseline so as to give this meaning of someone trying to step on the stones. And then I came on board after this was approved and tried to do the same, right? So translate that same concept, but into an Arabic language. And so I did the same. I shifted the letters under the baseline, which is obviously trickier because you're doing it to a connected script, and how would you do it, etc. We also tried to do it on a more elongated version of the title, but the client dropped this because it did not respect the calligraphic script. That was my first ever client to actually be concerned with trying to respect what the Arabic script can do. So we went back to zero. We tried to work in parallel, trying to deliver that same meaning, but in different approaches. This is one of them where we tried to change the weight from the beginning of the word until the end of it. And when animated, this gives like this wavy feeling crossing from left to right. Another solution was maybe just extending the kashidas, doing a wave with them, and in the case of the Latin, just extending the T because you don't have this extension in Latin, right? So maybe we're just compromising on the Latin here. And then another one was just cutting the letters as if you're going to read them step by step, right? So as if doing the action by reading the letters. Another different one was creating a pattern out of the name and then disrupting this pattern with elongated kashidas and elongated dashes in the Latin, so as the whole thing looks like the river that you are trying to find your way through. But the final chosen one actually was a different iteration, if you want, on the first concept with this vertical movement. But instead of shifting under the baseline, we elongated the ascenders, the alifs, lafs, and kafs of the Latin, which is very common in Kufi, and elongated also the letters of the Latin. And we did a grid on how much you can elongate, etc. And this is the final outcome. But the irony here, to me, is that the client finally ended up choosing Helvetica, which I don't think is very traditional and very, I mean, it's the more modern, like, let's say, thing. Anyway. Another thing is obviously the lack of literature, which has been talked about a lot during the talks today, and how there isn't a place to go to learn and to understand and to know how to work with Arabic letters. And this was a lot, reflected a lot in my lettering work, because when I started lettering, these are my initial lettering pieces, I just did it like super intuitively. I knew that I had to look at the script, the original script, but I didn't exactly understand what it means to change the weight, to change the contrast, to change the proportions. So I basically just relied more on the concept of it, on the meaning that I wanted to give out, and just dabbled with it. I also did some illustrative lettering because I felt that it's okay to go that way. It's better to go that way when you don't really know the rules. And everything changed for me when I took 2 intensive courses in type design. One was a type at Paris in 2015, and then ATDB here in AUB in 2016. And when I did the course in Paris, it was because the option of doing the Arabic one was not available. And so I went there hoping they'd let me do an Arabic one, but that was not an option. And so I created a typeface based on my own calligraphy, just so that I could understand or apply the same process into Arabic. But then the next year, ATDB happened, so hooray. And here everything changed for me. And even my approach to lettering and my process working with lettering did not so much rely on the concept anymore, but I became comfortable exploring the different scripts and seeing what each script can give in terms of meaning to my lettering work. And now I'm at ease. So I work with different scripts, and I still do illustrative and fun lettering, but I can also see the difference in my approach to it here, because I can still find a way to stick to the rules, and I might say I'm a little bit too obsessed with the rules right now. I gotta find a way to get out of that. Final one is fighting the pull of Pinterest and co. for both designer and client. And this might not tie directly to Arabic typography, because this is, I think, something that you should also do when working with Latin. But because in Arabic there's a lack of literature, when you're on Pinterest and you find an image, there is no trail that takes you back to a curated platform where they have good Arabic type, or where they talk about it, or where they explain the process. So it's just really visual candy, visual trends that you are trying to copy, basically. And it's a big challenge for designers, but also now for clients, because Pinterest and Canva, and there are all of these apps out there that are just accessible to clients who will come to you with their own mood boards and with their own directions. So I would like to share with you a project, a branding project for a restaurant I worked on with Wonder 8 as well. The restaurant is called Aziza, and it offers Levantine cuisine from different regions, like from Beirut, from different countries of the region, like Beirut, Egypt, and Jordan. And I've worked on a lot of Levantine restaurants. My portfolio is basically a lot of hospitality projects. And so I was kind of sick of just having to go into the cliches of what our identity is as Arab people, how to incorporate that in a restaurant brand. And I want something different. And so instead of just Googling eye candy, I went into the archives of the old Egyptian posters, and I thought that what unifies us as a region really is the walls of our cities, because this is our main means of expression with all the protests that are happening. And this is really something that is super common between us. So I combined these two into the brand language of the restaurant by taking these Egyptian posters and then changing the copy in a funny way into food-related stuff. So it's now قصة الصراع بين الفتوش والتبولة، حبيب الشاورما، عاشت للحمص. So just finding a different way from what I was usually used to doing when working with Levantine or Middle Eastern restaurants. And the logotype, you can see it here, it's Aziza here. And this is something that we shared with the client so that he understands where this is coming from and the process behind it. It was also based on the Egyptian posters and the ruqa that you find there. And as a final note, everybody gets the crown, because I think in this whole challenging experience, I mean, for me, and I'm guessing also for other designers, it doesn't matter who's king or who wins, because this is really a very transformative period. And we're all just bringing our experience to the table, trying to figure out how to solve this, how to make these challenges, how to fix these challenges, and how to make Arabic typography more accessible, let's say, to students. Am I the shortest one? The shortest?
Perfect.